So 10 tips for choosing the right contractor, right? You want to interview, I think somebody said that, do I interview 3 people? Absolutely, you should get 3 bids. If you're new, if you're using the same contractor, no, you're not going to get 3 bids. You're going to trust your guy. When I get a bid from my contractor, that's it. I don't question what it is. I don't say, well, can he do it for less? No, it is what it is, and that's what I pay him. That's why he's been working with me for 2.5 years. But if you're new in the business, get 3 bids out there. Make sure that you're bidding apples to apples. Make sure that they're bidding the exact same thing out. Have a scope of work laid out. This is exactly what I want done. These are the materials that I'm going to use, and they'll bid on that job for you. You're going to get 3 different prices, right? And they may vary $30,000. I mean, honest to God, they'll vary $30,000 on one job, and you're like, how could that possibly be? It is what it is, and you have to kind of pick the right one. The cheapest one is not going to be obviously the one you necessarily want to go with. It may be, but chances are it's probably not. The most expensive one might not be the one you go with, but it might be as well too. I talked about this on Tuesday with Mark, that I had a big job that we were gutting wall to wall in this entire house. I had one guy who came in at like $50,000, and I had 2 guys that came in at one was at like 79, one was at 90. I ultimately picked the guy who did it for 90 grand. Well, why would I pick the guy who was going to do it for 55, right? Because I knew that this guy did not see what I truly wanted to do to the property. I did not think he could do it. There's no way he could have done it for $55,000. And I knew had I gone into that for 55, it would have been 105 when all said and done. So just because that guy's cheapest does not mean that you want to do him. Don't pick the cheapest one. We just said that. Ask to go see some of their projects. Don't just take their word for it. What do you have going on right now? Can I come see your work? Go look after hours. Go look. Is it clean? Is it broom swept? I'm sure you guys keep I've seen pictures of yours, Dione, that you guys, you have a mic too, shouldn't the guys be keeping things broom swept after every single time? Regardless if the house is vacant, obviously nobody's living there, you want it broom swept every day, right?
Yeah, and it goes more than just that. I mean, it's the pride in the job, right, and what they're doing. So I think the biggest thing is finding guys that see the vision of what you're trying to do, and if taking pride in cleaning things up and keeping the job site clean. If that's not happening, then they're obviously not seeing the vision.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's a good point. It's just an indication of how they're going to treat you, how they treat their own employees and whatnot. So keep an eye on what they're doing. You want to discuss how they pick up materials. Are you responsible for picking up materials? Do you pay for materials? How does that going to work? Does he pick up materials and give you a receipt for them? What's going to happen a lot of times is he'll pick up materials, he'll tell you it costs $100 and it may cost 80, right? He's taking 20, put it in his pocket. That should never happen, never, ever, ever. So either you pick up the materials, which I'm fine with, or if you don't want to spend the time, he can pick up materials and then he submits an invoice to you basically, or he gives you the receipt so you know exactly how much things cost. But how does he want payment? Does he want draws in thirds? Does he want to get paid every week? Whatever you agree to is fine. But you don't want to give a guy a huge lump sum up front. Anybody have any horror stories of giving a guy 50% up front and all of a sudden he's gone, he doesn't come back? You hear about it all the time, right? It happens. Contractors, some of them are not honest people. You can apply that to any career, right? There are very dishonest contractors out there. There's no doubt. I've actually heard a couple stories being here. But discuss how they do change orders. Change orders will kill your budget. You know what I mean by a change order? If I decide that I want to put in a bathtub in this corner, but I'm like, you know what? I just saw this cool show on HGTV. I want to do this gigantic steam shower. That's a change order halfway through. Well, there's going to be material that has to be picked up for that. There's going to be more labor to do something like that. Discuss in the beginning, how do you handle change orders? Is it a flat fee? Do you charge 2% of whatever more you're doing? Do you just do it? Whatever it is. You've got to come up with an agreement of how to do a change order so it doesn't surprise you, because I guarantee things will not go as planned from A to Z. How do you do change orders? Read the scope of work, get the contract, and sign it.
First of all, picking up materials and payment schedules. You got to manage your contractors. You cannot let them manage you. It's kind of like a horse. You can't let it get out. Once you let it get out of the stable, you're done. They're running, and you'll never catch up with them. You got to set the tone from the very beginning that they are your contractor. You're in control of the project. Whatever pay schedule you agree to, keep it. Do your part. Don't ever let them get in a situation where they can say, well, you didn't do what you promised. You didn't do this. You didn't do that. Because then they're going to have something that they hold over your head. You want to have total integrity, but insist that they have total integrity as well. Change orders are one of those things where you can definitely agree. Thank you very much. You can definitely agree how change orders are handled. But again, don't let these guys use that as a way to kind of push you into a corner. Right. Well, man, you said you were going to do this, and then you threw that shower at me, and that put me back a week. Bull, it put you back a week. It put you back a half a day. We agreed to what's going to happen. Stick with it.
one of the more important things, to know going in up front is you need to really be clear about what your scope of work is. Because just like a contractor can frustrate you when they don't perform or do what they say they're going to do, listen, my father's a contractor, and I will tell you, years of watching it unfold, the indecisive homeowner, the indecisive person, well, I thought I wanted to do this, then I wanted to do that. Well, man, you can't go changing your mind midstream and expect the same result or whatever. So a lot of it has to do looking at your subject property or the one that you've purchased, know exactly what your scope of work is. Be certain about it. Know where you want to put your money, bathrooms, kitchens, finishes, and all of that kind of going in, because that's a two-way street, okay? And we always want to be objective and fair about the relationship. The other thing I would say is that the contractor that you're choosing to do business with, it's always better, when they have skin in the game. Now, if for whatever reason, it has to be a case where, I don't know, say things are a little tight for them financially. Maybe it's not a bad idea where, okay, I'll get the materials for you so that you can get started. But for the one who's asking for you to get them this lump sum of money where where they can get the materials and they can have the money to pay their people and all that kind of stuff, you're setting yourself up potentially, unless there's a relationship, for a situation where there is work left over after the money.
Be very careful with that.
I love writing checks to my subs, because when I write checks to my subs, that means they've done everything that they're supposed to do. I've inspected it. I've looked it over once, twice, 3 times, whatever. You're good. We're good. I'm going to write this check and write it gladly. That part of it's in the book. So, just that whole relationship is what you make of it.
Make sure your contractors are licensed, insured, and bonded, all 3 across the board. They have to be all 3. The difference is obviously licensed. You know what it means to have a license. It's like anything. Insured means if someone gets hurt on their property, when somebody comes in, an inspector, one of their guys, they've got to have workman's comp insurance that they're going to cover that for you. Yes, you're going to have your own insurance. You're going to have an umbrella policy. You're going to be covered as well too. But they've got to have workman's comp insurance. You want to be named as a loss payee as well on that. In case somebody gets hurt, he wants to pay for it. Get a copy of that. Make sure you see it at least the first time. Bonded means if they take off with your money and run, chances are you can go to court and get that money back. That's what a bond is. So make sure that they have all 3 of those across the board. Don't give any more than 1/3 of the budget up front. I think that's pretty self-explanatory why you don't want to give somebody a huge chunk of change, particularly if you don't know them. Don't give it to them up front. They can certainly start the demo without any money, right? All it is paying a guy $15 an hour to start tearing something down. They can start with any money up front. You can pay them a week later. Check in often. If you're new in this business, find out what they're doing and why they're doing it. Don't just say, well, I don't know a thing about construction. I just let my guy do it. That's inexcusable. You need to learn this business and understand the business, or else you're going to get taken advantage of. A contractor's going to start doing things because, my client doesn't know what I'm doing. I could be doing anything, and he doesn't know. I said I had to put in a beam, and he doesn't know why I have to do it. I didn't even have to, but it cost him $2,000, so I did it. That happens all the time. Understand why they're doing it. Ask questions. Verify. Devise an incentive program. I'm not a huge fan of this. Some people say, hey, if you get done early, I'll pay you, you get a $1,000 bonus, or if you're late, I'm going to knock off $100. Do any of you guys have this incentive program? I don't like it.
Guys will never tolerate being penalized. In the commercial world, that's very common, but in our world, guys will never put up with that. What do you think, Mark?
We don't, being early, that's very rare. I think we all know that, if ever. But giving a small percentage, we do 5%, 10% at times. If the job's done on time or close to it and done right and done what we expected, and a lot of times it does go long. Whether you're giving an incentive or not, I think it's good to find out and really write down why things are taking longer than you expected. Because in the end, you kind of forget, all the things like we talked about that you're adding. That why did this project take an extra week or 2 or whatever. Make sure you're jotting it down so they don't come back to you and say, it was so much more, and you look back like Kyle mentioned a project, or you mentioned that project that really only backed them up a day. They say it was a week, and but incentive programs do work at times, but it's not as common as it doesn't work as well as you would think it would.
Yeah, you want to have a schedule. You want to lay that out from the very beginning. Week 1 we're doing this, we're doing demo. Week 2 we're doing mechanicals. Have that spelled out so you can see what's happening each week. But projects rarely get done on time. You may be a day over, maybe 2 days over, maybe 3 days over, maybe 6 weeks over. You're hardly ever done early, right? That doesn't ever happen. But you want to make sure that at least you're pretty darn close to where you wanted to be from the very beginning. Make sure your contractor's abilities match with the end product you're trying to produce. If you've got a high-end guy who's used to doing multi-million-dollar homes, he's probably not your guy to do your $150,000 flip, right? He's just not used to it. He doesn't understand the concept of putting in linoleum or laminate countertops. He doesn't get that. He's going to charge you out the wazoo for it as well, too. So don't do that. And vice versa. If a guy's used to doing $100,000 houses, he's not your guy to do an $800,000 flip. I've done a couple of those. You got to find the right guy. Who's going to match? You got to marry the two together, your project versus what his capabilities are as well.